So today we'll be talking about monopoly. We already finished perfectly competitive markets, and I told you that there are large numbers of buyers and sellers, and that ensures that nobody has complete control over the market. Monopoly, on the other hand, is just one seller for lakhs and crores of buyers. And that person would have absolute control over the market. And that is something which is not very much appreciated either by people or by economics. So today we'll be just looking at what kind of monopolies are there in the world and what are the economic implications of having a monopoly. So let me share this with you. Oh, just a moment. Share screen. Yes. Okay. So let me start with absolute monopoly first. Absolute monopoly is where there is actually just one seller, or as it happens in India, there's just one family, a large family, but just one family which has complete control over the market. And I'll give you an example of this because I've actually come across this when I have been doing my field service. So in Karnataka, I came across this product called Upage, which was being used by pharmaceutical firms in reducing weight. And when I found out the weight reducing tablet prices, they were very, very high. But when you see the actual price which is being paid to the forest gatherers for gathering upage from forest was very low. I tried to find who are these people who come and buy the upage. We went and met some shopkeepers also. Nobody would reveal who finally buys this. But there was a family which was completely controlling that market, and nobody else could sell upage to the pharmaceutical companies except them. They were the monopolists as far as the sellers or the forest gatherers in Karnataka were concerned. They were the monopolists as far as the buyers, which are the pharmaceutical companies were. Okay, and there was tremendous exploitation of the workers because, as I said, for something for which they would be getting easily something like 300 to 400 rupees, they would pay at the most 50 rupees per kg to the forest gatherers. That was the kind of price difference. This is what a monopoly can do. Okay, so that is one. I found a similar kind of thing in Odisha. Once again, one family, very difficult to find out which exactly are the people who are behind this, but just one family controls all the forest products which are being collected from the forests in Odisha, Skalahandi and things like that. So we find this kind of monopoly in India. Then when there used to be zamindars in the British period, we abolished zamindari, but in British period, there used to be zamindars, and zamindars used to ask farmers to come and work for them. If you don't work for them, they will beat you up. They will take away your wealth. There would be goons, the gangs of goons, who would make sure that you have to work for this person. You can't deny working for this person. That was a different type of monopoly, but a monopoly on right. So these are the kind of local monopolies that I could think of. But as far as the world is concerned, when we say monopoly, what we mean is that just one firm controls a huge part of the market, and the other players are so small and insignificant that they do not count at all. So one monopoly like that in India when we were growing up was Bata. And the only competitors to Bata were the Mochis, nobody else. Okay, Bata was like complete monopolist, but whenever it would be told that you are a monopolist, it would say no, but the Mochis are there. The only thing is that Bata actually did not control that much part of the Indian shoes market. The Mochis actually gave competition to Bata, you know. So there is some kind of a difference here, but in world, there are people who control almost 75 to 80% of the total market. They are oligopolies, but the other players in that oligopoly are minuscule. And there is just one firm which calls all the shots. And when I give you the names, you would recognize them instantly because you are IT students. Wait, why is it not going? Okay, so here we go. Microsoft, 75% of market share in computer operating system. Windows, you know, it's Android, 73% of mobile operating system. Google, 70% of market for search engines. Facebook and WhatsApp, monopoly on social media. You know all of these people, and you know that they are the ones who call all the shots. Nobody else is allowed in this market. Nobody else. Okay, so these are the examples of monopoly. One that you would not have heard of, but which I found on Google was Luxottica, and it produces more than 80% of sunglasses, the branded sunglasses sold in the world. Okay, so there are monopolies like this, which are controlling a lot of market, and then they call all the shots because you cannot get anything else that you are looking for. You have to get only what they are giving. You have no choice. Okay. So barriers to entry. So when I was teaching you perfect competition, I told you that entry and exit are free. Anyone can come and produce tuor or potatoes or whatever. Anyone can come and sell the pulses or potatoes or wheat or whatever. There is no restriction as to who can come in and who can't. On the contrary, these big firms will ensure that nobody else becomes so big. So when WhatsApp starts becoming big, Facebook realizes that it can't fight it. Facebook just acquires. This is what most of these firms do. The moment they find that somebody is actually coming up with the things which were very, very competitive compared to their product, they would just go and buy it. But they would not allow their monopoly to be compromised. So, blocking the entry of any other player is what the monopolist does, but also understand that most nations in the world now have laws which make these kind of practices illegal. You are not allowed to do this because of what I told you before, that it is difficult to control these people because they have absolute control over the market, and then it can be violent. It can actually compromise the interests of the consumers. So in most of the nations, you have laws against monopoly. So I have given you some examples that Google was fined 2.4 billion euros in 2017 by European Union. Microsoft was charged with monopoly practices in USA, and the verdict was that it will have to break itself into more companies. It cannot continue as a monopolist like this. So there is this constant struggle to stop monopoly from happening, and companies which emerge as monopolies blocking entry of others and ensuring that they are the only players in the market. In the local monopolies, these players, as I told you, are erasing. It's not very easy to catch them, but they also control the market. So this is as far as the introduction to monopoly is concerned. Now let me give you the economic theory behind it. So first of all, the monopolist is the only supplier, which means that the demand curve that the monopolist faces is the market demand curve. So The market demand curve is the average revenue curve for the monopolist. So if you want to sell more and more, you will have to reduce the price more and more. Simple market demand curve. Okay. So the market demand curve is your average revenue curve, and your marginal revenue, you will have to keep cutting the price to sell more and more. So your marginal revenue is always going to be less than your average revenue. It always lies below the average revenue because you will not be able to sell more unless you reduce the price. Okay. So these are the two revenue curves that you have to learn. In perfectly competitive market, remember it was horizontal. It was horizontal because the share of the producer was minuscule. Here, the share of the producer is absolute, 100%. So the producer faces the market demand curve. Okay. So this is one thing. Now, with these kind of revenue curves, when would the monopolist achieve equilibrium? The equilibrium condition, as I told you, across market structures remains the same. Marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost. So now in your average revenue and marginal revenue curves, we introduce average total cost and marginal cost curve. And with this, we find the point of equilibrium where marginal cost equals marginal revenue. Now, this is not the price. The price is given by AR curve. So you will have to bring this point up, and this is the equilibrium price that the monopolist would charge, and this is the quantity that the monopolist would supply. Now note that if it was a competitive market, then ATC, average cost curve, would also equal AR, because the equilibrium in perfectly competitive market was MC is equal to AR is, sorry, MC is equal to MR is equal to AC is equal to AR. So this would have been the quantity. Okay, please note this. This would have been the quantity, and so much more than monopoly, and this would have been the price, much less than monopoly. Okay, so remember this curve because you will be asked to reproduce this curve in the exam. Okay, so problems with monopoly. Now you just saw it. It charges much higher than perfect competition. It supplies much less quantity than perfect competition. And in local monopolies, you can be completely deprived of that product as a consumer. अगर आपने उससे झगड़ा किया, तो आपको वो चीज मिलेगी ही नहीं. If that person is the only petrol pump in your area, and if somehow you had झगड़ा with that person, he will stop supplying petrol to you. अभी मरो तो. Okay. Then, so absolute control can be violent. It can actually make the consumer's interest suffer, or as I told you, in case of the zamindars, you can actually be beaten up. Okay. So problems are there with monopoly, and serious problems are there with monopoly. So first of all, it is absolute control, and that absolute control can lead to many issues inside the market. So how do we break a monopolist power? So I wanted to tell you some stories regarding that. Coke was introduced in the market before Pepsi, and Coke by 1894 was already gaining a lot of market share, and 1893 Pepsi was introduced. So when Pepsi came in, Coke was already becoming very popular. Okay, and many people were already using it. Pepsi was a minuscule, small little thing. It took Pepsi almost 40 years. So after Great Depression, which happened in 1930, so after Great Depression, Pepsi started the price war with Coke. It started producing the same quality as Coke, but started selling it at much lower price. And that won Pepsi the market, creating a price war. This is how Pepsi entered the market, which was controlled by Coca-Cola very strong. Then, as far as Japan was concerned, when Japan entered the world market, the technological products were basically controlled mainly by USA and Germany. And then Japan beat them up by coming up with the best quality products. Sony, whenever it would come out with something which was a music system, which was a TV, whatever, it used to be like the best. And the cars, Toyota would kill all the features of General Motors. Okay, so the quality was so good that Japan basically defeated both Europe and America, and it did not become a monopolist, but it entered the market, which was a very difficult market to enter. It was an oligopoly, but it became one of the oligopolies. So that's another way. You introduce products which are of far better quality. And the third way to do it is the government supports another firm, saying that I will give you money, I will give you grants. You establish a firm which will fight with this monopolist and compete with that person, so that prices come down and so that the quantity would also increase. Government did this as far as mobile phones were concerned, because BSNL ko laya gaya, one, BSNL and BSNL, two things were brought in. When mobile phones were very rare, उस time Dolphin करके एक phone को introduce किया गया था, so that the per minute charges go down. Okay, so at times government also does this. So this is as far as the entire picture of monopoly is concerned. In the next lecture, I'll tell you why certain monopolies are actually desired by the world, and the world makes sure that this remains monopoly and nothing else. Very contradictory, but I will talk about it in the next lecture. Thank you. First, get out of this.